An excerpt from House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. These days, I'm an apprentice at a tattoo shop on Sunset. I answer phones, schedule consultations, and clean up. Any idiot could handle it. In fact, the job's reserved for idiots. This afternoon, though, how do I explain it? Something's really off. I'm off. Can't do a fucking thing. I just keep staring at all the ink we have, that wild variety of color. Everything from root beer, midnight blue, and cochineal to mauve. Light dough, lilac, South Sea green, maize, even thimbles, and needles too. My eyes catching on all those carefully preserved points, and we have hundreds, mostly number 12 sharps. Many single, even plenty in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 needle groups. Even a 14 round shader. It depends on what you need. I don't know what I need, but for no apparent reason, I'm going terribly south. Nothing has happened. Absolutely nothing. But I'm still having problems breathing. The air in the shop is admittedly thick with the steady smell of sweat, isopropyl alcohol, benzol, all that solution needed for the ultrasonic cleaner, even solder and flux. But that's not it either. Of course no one notices. My boss, a retinue of his friends, some new inductee who's just put down $150 for a rose, keep up chatter. Pretty loud chatter, too. Though never quite enough to drown out the most important sound of all. The single, insistent buzz of an original J tattoo machine logging yet another 100 stabs a minute in the dimple of some chunky ass. I get a glass of water. I walk into the hallway. That's a mistake. Instead, I'm alone, running through a quick mental checklist. Food poisoning? Stomach's fine. Withdrawals? Haven't been on a GAC or morning ecstasy diet for several months. And while I didn't smoke any pot this morning, my usual ritual, I know THC doesn't create any lasting physical dependencies. And then out of the beef-fucking-loo, everything gets substantially darker. Not pitch black, mind you. Not even power failure black. More like a cloud passing over the sun. Make that a storm. Though there is no storm. No cloud. It's a bright day, and anyway, I'm inside. I wish that had been all. Just a slight decrease in illumination and a little breathing difficulty. Could still blame that on a blown fuse or some aberrant drug-related flashback. But then my nostrils flare with the scent of something bitter and foul. Something inhuman, reeking with so much rot and years, telling me in the language of nausea that I'm not alone. Something's behind me. Of course, I deny it. It's impossible to deny. I want to puke. To get a better idea, try this. Focus on these words. Whatever you do, don't let your eyes wander past the perimeter of this page. Now imagine, just beyond your peripheral vision, maybe behind you, maybe to the side of you, maybe even in front of you, but right where you can't see it, something is quietly closing in on you. So quiet, in fact, you can only hear it as silence. Find those pockets without sound. That's where it is. Right at this moment. But don't look. Keep your eyes here. Now take a deep breath. Go ahead. Take an even deeper one. Only this time, as you start to exhale, try to imagine how fast it will happen. How hard it's going to hit you. How many times it will stab your jugular with its teeth, or are they nails? Don't worry, that particular detail doesn't matter. Because before you have time to even process that you should be moving, you should be running. You should, at the very least, be flinging up your arm. You sure as hell should be getting rid of this book. You won't even have time to scream. Don't look. I didn't. Of course I looked. I looked so fucking fast I should have ended up wearing one of those neck braces for whiplash. My hands had gone all clammy. My face was burning up. Who knows how much adrenaline had just been dumped into my system. Before I turned, it felt exactly as if, in fact, I had turned, and at that instant caught sight of some tremendous beast crouched off in the shadows, muscles a-twitch from firing its great mass forward, ragged claws slowly extending, digging into the linoleum, even as its eyes are dilating beyond the point of reason, completely obliterating the irises, and by that widening fire, the glowing furnace of witness, a camera lucida, with me in silhouette, like some silly hand shadow twitching about upside down. Is that right? Or am I getting confused? Either way, registering at last the sign it must have been waiting for. My own recognition of exactly what had been awaiting me all along. Except that when I finally do turn, jerking around like the scared, shitless shit-for-brains I am, I discover only a deserted corridor. Or was it merely a recently deserted corridor? This thing, whatever it had been, obviously beyond the grasp of my imagination, or for that matter my emotions, having departed into alcoves of darkness, seeping into corners and floors, cracks and outlets, gone even to the wall. Light's normal now. The smell history. Though my fingers still tremble and I've yet to stop choking on large irregular gulps of air, as I keep spinning around like a stupid top spinning on top of nothing, looking everywhere, even though there's absolutely nothing. Nothing anywhere. I actually thought I was going to fall, and then just as abruptly as I had been possessed by this fear, it left me and fell back into control. When I re-enter the shop, things are still askew, but at least they seem manageable. The phone has been ringing. 9 times and counting, my boss announces. He's clearly annoyed. More annoyed than when I expressed some surprise over his ability to count that high. I pick up all he can start yammering at me about my attitude. The call's for me. Lude's on a payphone in the valley with some important info. Apparently, there's significant doings at some significant club. He tells me he can guest list my boss and any cohorts I deem worthy. Sure, I say. But I'm still shaken and quickly lose hold of the details when I realize I've just forgotten something else as well. Something very important. Which by the time I hang up, no matter how hard I try, I can no longer remember what I'd meant to remember when whatever it was had first entered my head. Or had it. Maybe it hadn't entered my head at all. Maybe it had just brushed past me, like someone easing by in a dark room, the face lost in shadow, my thoughts lost in another conversation, though something in her movement or perfume is disturbingly familiar. Though how familiar is impossible to tell, because by the time I realize she's someone I should know, she's already gone. Deep into the din, beyond the bar, taking with her any chance of recognition. Though she hasn't left, she's still there, embracing shadows. Is that it? Had I been thinking of a woman? I don't know. I hope it doesn't matter. I have a terrifying feeling it does.